A war is sometimes won not by millions of soldiers, but by a single weapon. What changed the course of history was not always strategy. Sometimes it was an invention, the pull of a trigger piece of metal, that suddenly changed the order of the world. In this video, we will talk about weapons that didn't just wound people, but wounded history itself. Some built empires, some ended eras, and some taught humanity what power truly means. So how can a single weapon shape the outcome of an entire war? If you're ready, let's take a look together at the deadliest turning points in history. 5. At number 5, there is one of the most terrifying secrets in history. It falls into water, yet it doesn't go out. On the contrary, the moment it touches water, burns even stronger. This weapon is called Greek fire. It was used by the Byzantine Empire in the 7th century, and it was so effective that enemy fleets would retreat before the battle even began. Because this fire didn't just burn ships, it burned people's hope. And here's the most frightening part. The formula of this weapon was never revealed. Passed down from generation to generation, only by word of mouth. Those who knew the formula died, and the recipe went to the grave with them. Some historians believe it was made off petroleum derivatives, sulfur, and chemicals that could not be extinguished. But the real mixture remains a mystery of history. Greek fire bought the Byzantine Empire centuries of time. It didn't just save cities, it saved empires. And perhaps the most unsettling truth is this: if the secret of this weapon were known today, modern warfare would look very different. Imagine a fire that cannot be extinguished by water. That is why Greek fire is considered one of the first psychological weapons in history. Number 4. Up next, there is a weapon that looks simple, but whose impact is devastating. It doesn't explode, it doesn't burst into flames, and it has no complex mechanism. Just an arrow, yet it can change the fate of a war. This weapon is called the war arrow. In medieval warfare, especially used by English longbowmen, these arrows were designated not just to hit a target, but to kill. Hardened tips capable of piercing armor, bone-crushing impact force, and unstoppable speed. A single arrow could break not just one soldier, but an entire formation. And the most terrifying part is this: these arrows were silent. No cannon blasts, no explosions, just a sharp whistle cutting through the air, followed by soldiers collapsing to the ground. A distant, unseen death. The war wrought panic on the battlefield. Soldiers stopped watching the enemy and started watching the sky. And perhaps the most painful truth is this: these arrows made wars faster, because once they began to fall like rain, there was no turning back. Imagine a simple weapon, yet one that could stop armies. That is why the war arrow is remembered in history as one of the most effective mass weapons ever used. Number 3. Up next, one of the most iconic weapons in the history of warfare. Before gunpowder, before machines, the fate of wars rested in steel held by human hands. This weapon is the sword. For more than 3,000 years, it was used as the most effective weapon for close combat in history. The Roman legionaries' gladius was only 50–60 centimeters long, but it was deadly in close-range fighting. Viking swords weighed around 1.2 to 1.5 kilograms, light, fast, and sharp enough to cut through bone. The samurai's katana, with a blade of about 70 centimeters, could be lethal with a single well-placed strike. A skilled swordsman could deliver more than 20 effective attacks per minute, meaning a single warrior could stop multiple enemies at once. But what made the sword terrifying was not just its sharpness. A sword was status, power, authority. In many cultures, carrying a sword was forbidden to ordinary soldiers. Because a sword didn't just dominate the battlefield, it dominated the mind. And perhaps the most striking fact of all, even after firearms were introduced, swords continued to be used in battlefields for nearly 300 more years. Imagine a simple piece of metal that built empires. That is why the sword was not just a weapon, it was history itself. Number 2. Up next, a weapon that didn't target the battlefield, but entire cities. This weapon was not designed for soldier-to-soldier combat, but to destroy walls. Its name, the catapult. The first catapults began to be used around 400 BC, and for more than 1,500 years, they shaped the fate of wars. Medieval catapults could launch stones weighing between 50 and 300 kilograms. Some massive catapults were capable of striking fortress walls from distances of around 200 to 300 meters. But it wasn't just about power. A catapult could fire 2 to 4 shots per hour. It may sound slow, but every shot turned a piece of wall into history. And the ammunition wasn't limited to stone. Incendiary materials, shattered metal, and even disease-carrying corpses were used. That's why catapults didn't just cause destruction, they spread fear. No matter how thick a fortress wall was, against a catapult, it was only a matter of time before surrender. And perhaps the most striking truth is this: a catapult didn't win a war. It declared that the war was inevitable. Cities fell, kingdoms collapsed, and borders were redrawn. Imagine a machine, quietly assembled, yet powerful enough to shake empires. That is why the catapult is remembered as one of the most effective siege weapons in history. Number 1. And at number 1, the most extraordinary weapon in the history of warfare. Not metal, not gunpowder, not even a machine. Alive, intelligent, and nearly impossible to stop. The name of this weapon: war elephants. The use of war elephants dates back to around 300 BC. They were actively used by the armies of India, the Persian Empire, and Carthage. A single war elephant weighed an average of 4 to 6 tons. It could reach speeds of up to 30 kilometers per hour, and on its own, could trample dozens of soldiers. Towers mounted on their backs carried 3 to 6 soldiers, turning the elephant into a moving battle platform. But elephants were not just raw physical power. An elephant charge could break an army before any direct contact even happened, because many soldiers were facing, for the first time in their lives, a living creature of that size. One of the most striking examples was Hannibal's elephants. In 218 BC, around 37 elephants crossed the Alps, creating shock and fear within the Roman army. But like every weapon, war elephants had their weaknesses. A panicking elephant that lost control could become deadly then to its own army. And perhaps the most ironic truth is this: over time, a way to stop war elephants was found. Fire, noise, and later firearms eventually pushed this giant weapon off the battlefield. Imagine an army facing not steel, but a force of nature. That is why war elephants are remembered as one of the most terrifying and unforgettable tools of war in history. History shows us one thing: wars were not always won by armies. Sometimes a single weapon decided the fate of an entire era. The weapons we saw today didn't just change wars, they changed the direction of the world. So what do you think? Which weapon had the greatest impact on history? Make sure to write your answer in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. Until the next video, where we uncover another dark secret of history, take care.